Welcome to Bacon 2019. We're really excited to be here. We're really excited to spend the next 2 days with all of you. Hopefully you guys are excited as well. Quick show of hands, how many people have been to or attended Bacon previously? Awesome. Thank you all for coming back. And then everyone else, I'm assuming it's the first time. So thank you guys for coming. We're excited to have you here and excited to share what we're seeing in the areas of data and analytics over the next couple days. Quick disclaimer, you're going to see this on all of our slides. We might share things that aren't necessarily out yet by IBM or things that are in the works, so don't hold us to anything. But we do have a little bit of insight into what's in the labs. My name is Dustin Atkinson. I'm the managing partner for PMsquare. Really excited to, if I haven't met you, to meet you this week. If I have met you, it's great to see all of you. So really simple agenda for my presentation here. We're just going to look at market trends and future challenges that we're predicting or seeing in the industry. Spend a lot of time on the market trends and really the challenges. Unfortunately, we don't know if we have answers to all of them yet. We think we see where things are going, and we're going to share where we think trends are going. So really quickly, a brief history of data and analytics, and everyone's probably seen this mode 1, mode 2, and augmented analytics. Augmented may be new to you. To simplify this, instead of having to read through everything, I figured people have seen this enough. Mode 1 is just IT driven, and it's focused on data governance, data being secure, like all the things around like making sure data is good, and then we'll roll out nice reports, we'll build the reports ourselves. It's really an IT driven approach to analytics. Mode 2 is more business driven, and as a result, it ends up being more focused on speed to insights and a little less focused on, oh, is my data perfect? It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be perfect enough to figure out trends and what I want to know. And then augmented is more of a computer guided, so computer driven analytics. This is where we see augmentations around visualizations, augmentations around how data is actually brought in. So an example would be FL, Florida, and maybe some put FLA. Being able to automatically recognize that those are all Florida, put them into one bucket when visualizing. Is everyone familiar with those? That makes sense to everybody? So with that little history lesson, the augmented side is probably the newest. It's probably an area that a lot of people are less familiar. But I want to do a little additional step, and that's talking about what IBM's doing in some of these areas, particularly as it relates to the market trends. So the first market trend here is that a lot of customers have different solutions for those different needs. So they might have a mode 1 tool, they might have a mode 2 tool, so maybe that's Cognos, and maybe that's Tableau or Qlik or something, or Power BI. And they might have an augmented tool if they've made it that far. There's really, within all of those mode 1 and mode 2 tools, they're now racing to see how quickly can we add this augmented analytics to our existing capabilities. How quickly can we add AI into data visualization and analytics. AI and data science are really becoming their own distinct areas, so they're no longer, in a lot of areas, they're not AI and data science, despite IBM's new group name of data science and AI for the group that we're talking about here. They're not necessarily always bundled. And then, who here's familiar with microservices or containerization? That is becoming a bigger and bigger deal, particularly around how you deploy your applications. So microservices and containerized deployments are basically taking any application, being able to deploy it anywhere you want. And then big data, we're going to say, is finding its level. We think big data maybe is dying off or slowing down a bit. So if anyone here has done a big data project, maybe you have had success, which is great, but we've seen a lot of clients not necessarily have success trying to go the big data route. So then IBM's approach for each of these areas, with regards to multiple tools, Cognos is really designed to have everything in one. They're recognized by Gartner as the only tool that has mode 1, mode 2, and augmented analytics. Despite the fact that Gartner clearly doesn't like IBM for anything else, they do have everything that all these other tools have, and they're the only tool to be recognized for having all those things. With augmented analytics, the other tools are now working backward and saying, how do we add augmented analytics? IBM's had it since 11.1. We're already starting to see enhancements now with 11.1.3, and we're expecting a lot more enhancements with .4. Watson Studio bundles AI and data science, and now you've got the ability to deploy those together. The microservices approach, and really going to go on the complete platform with IBM Cloud Pak. Who's familiar with ICP, or ICP for D, which is IBM Cloud Pak for data? So this is IBM's solution on top of Docker, essentially. So imagine it's like Docker on steroids. You can roll out deployments very quickly. Specifically for us, IBM Cloud Pak for data is the solution that focuses there. I'd say that they are widely recognized as probably one of the best, if not the best, vendors for rolling out microservices and containerized content. All right, so looking at some current events, we've all seen this. Salesforce acquired Tableau. Many of you also know Google acquired Looker, which is another data visualization tool. Big one that maybe a lot of people don't fully understand is IBM acquired Red Hat. And I grabbed this headline specifically because it says, boosts hybrid cloud platform. And I realized that many people don't necessarily know what hybrid cloud is and why it matters to us in the data and analytics space. So anyone here does anyone here know what hybrid cloud is? All right. Okay, perfect. So those of you who didn't raise your hand, what is hybrid cloud? It's very simple. So you've got your internal clouds, you've got your external cloud. You could have multiple internal, so it could just be 2 internal, no external. It could be multiple external. The whole concept is just that you have 2 or more cloud environments with hybrid cloud on top. So your user goes to one place, they don't really know where the compute power is happening. It could be going to a server anywhere. So it's basically a way of making multiple clouds look like one cloud. And Red Hat, in a lot of ways, has a monopoly on this. They're like the tool that does that. So why hybrid cloud? Why does it matter? It creates better pooling of your resources. So now you may have a bunch of computers that are in your server farm, and you decided to go with the cloud route as well, but you don't really know what to do with those old computers. Now you can actually use some of that compute power. Supports edge computing, which is another term that I realize is a very hot topic right now, and most people don't know what it means. Anyone know what edge computing means? All right, I've seen a couple people raise their hands every time, so if I'm wrong, don't correct me. But so what is edge computing? It's pretty simple. It's bringing processing power as close to the edge of where users need it as possible. So let's say you need to do a big ETL process. You probably want that as close to your data center as possible. Cloud computing allows that to happen. Maybe you're running something as an individual user. You sit in Chicago. You've got an AWS server farm in Seattle, and you've also got a server farm in Chicago. Your processing will route as close to you as possible. So it's all about speed of LAN, essentially. So yeah, brings computing to the edge of where it's needed. So this creates better performance. Now you're not waiting on, you have to go across the country for compute. Better maintainability, because now you've got some failover, the actual content shared across multiple servers. So we're moving on kind of quickly, but this is something that I kind of created, which is my view of data and analytics maturity. In a lot of ways, this follows a timeline of how we saw data and analytics mature on its own, like in the world. But for many of you, you're going to find that like you may be in the lower left area of this still as an organization. So it's not just a point in time thing. It is a point in time from how these technologies have advanced over time. But you could still be, as an organization, not in the upper right, and most of you will be. So let me go ahead and start talking about what these are. So really, data and analytics maturity started with data collection. We were collecting data as people way before we were knowing how to analyze it, or analyze it in any type of like advanced way. And then we maybe moved on to some basic reporting, whatever you want to consider this. This could be SQL queries with nothing but just columns and rows of data. And then we saw this basic reporting on top of some form of structured data. So instead of just pulling directly from base data systems, maybe now we're structuring our data in some way, still doing some fairly basic reporting. And that led to what we'll call ad hoc on top of some form of structured data. So data mart could mean anything here. This could be using Power Play on top of a Power Play cube. I would consider that to be that ad hoc reporting on a data mart. It's pre-structured data that you're doing some ad hoc reporting on. And we're going to call this whole area legacy. Please, we try to come up with a good name. Don't be offended if you're in legacy. it's just a name. But we're going to call that legacy. The next area is actually pretty small. This was model-based BI reporting. So this was from an IBM perspective, ReportNet, and maybe Cognos 8. You built some basic reporting. It's really targeted toward BI. It's a model in the background, so now you're not having to reuse the same calculations, the same like merges. Everything's done for you with the semantic layer. So they invented the semantic layer. Really what that led to, though, because it was very IT intensive, is an IT-driven approach to data and analytics. Very, very, very shortly after that, we started seeing ad hoc, and ad hoc started off being on top of spreadsheets, and then this IT-centric approach said, well, let's move into the business ourselves, and we'll go start working with some planning analytics, and maybe we'll add in some predictive analytics and put it all together, or start working on putting it all together. This is all still before it all got put together. Now we saw the ad hoc mature a little bit. Now you can do ad hoc on top of some type of structured data. Maybe that's a data warehouse, not quite to like the semantic layer yet, but you get ad hoc on top of something more mature. And I think tools like IBM started to take note and said, well, we need to add in some data visualizations, some better end user mode 2 style analytics. And I think, that's business driven area never left. But then we add centralized analytics. So that's the term we're gonna use for Cognos 11, where you've got your ad hoc. I think it's still advancing. Obviously, like ad hoc is not, like they started later, they're not to the same point as some of the other ad hoc tools, but they're advancing, they're getting there. And really some of the new releases I think are pretty comparable, if not as good as some of the other ad hoc tools. So kind of this back and forth again, and now we saw the ad hoc tools say, well, we need better data, because obviously this data governance things matters. So people started looking at data lakes, and notice that data lakes isn't quite into the upper right quadrant. It's still kind of towing the line, and in a lot of ways, we don't know if data lakes are really going to take off. We think maybe they've come and gone in a lot of ways. We've seen that in the market, we've seen that with our clients. Has anyone here tried to implement a data lake? Hand still up if you feel like you were successful with it. Okay, so I think the point's probably been made there, just in the room, anecdotally. There's also some stats to show this. So not that Hadoop's the only thing you could use for a data lake, but Hadoop was like a quickly growing technology in the big data field, and very quickly stopped growing and started dying off. So the data supports what we are anecdotally seeing as well. Then the last area, which is the area that we just talked about, which is augmented analytics, where now we've got computer-driven analytics. AI is starting to actually build your charts. AI is starting to predict what data you might want next. This whole area we're going to call the unified area. So this is IT and business coming together. You've got IT governance. You've got business being able to actually quickly drive insights. They can import their own data still if they want to. But even in that way, there's governance around it. Does this all make sense to everybody? Everyone feel like they've seen this same trend in data and analytics? All right. So a few questions that we've been asking, and again, I'm not necessarily saying we have answers to these questions. These are actually tough questions to even think about if you're in the IT and analytics space. One is, how much value is there actually in self-service analytics? And I've got more slides on these, but why is it still so difficult to get to the data I need to deliver insights? And is any of this making a difference? Which is probably something we've all asked at some point. Like, I just spent 2 weeks building a report. Are people using it? Do they like it? Are they happy? We don't always know. So this first question of how much value is there actually in self-service analytics? We really have started looking at this from what was the best self-service tool we saw? And I think a lot of us who grew up in the Cognos world would still say PowerPlay was really good. And most people who've used PowerPlay love it and are waiting for another tool to come around like that. I think we've already started to see with dashboards the addition of some ad hoc, creating charts, being able to bring in your own data and model it on your own. Like, a lot of the self-service features are getting there, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but we've seen in the pipeline for IBM that something very similar to PowerPlay is supposed to be out by the end of this year. So we're very hopeful for a future that has actual slice and dice like we've all grown to love. The next question, though, is why is it still so difficult to get the data we need to deliver insights? And really, if you think about what's happening, data is growing really, really, really quickly in the world. Like, I don't remember what last stat I heard, but it's like every month data grows by more than it's grown in the previous 5 years or something stupid like that. So data is just going crazy. And I think that's one of the challenges. It's harder to get to data when there's a lot more data. We've started to see that we can deliver better insights with AI, with augmented analytics. But that's really focused on the end user, the visualization. So, hey, I'm an end user, I'm looking for something, how do I visualize this? The example I gave earlier, like maybe Florida is all these things, it's not just one thing. What we're starting to see and what we think will continue is bringing AI and augmentation into the database side. And now saying we're going to have AI start to do your data prep. It's going to help you decide what data is important so you don't get overwhelmed by the ongoing flow of data that's coming into the organization. So we're really excited to see where that trend goes. Again, we don't have answers to all these things. We just want to tell you what we're seeing, what we're concerned about, and what we're seeing happening that helps alleviate those concerns, because we assume you guys may have some of the same concerns. Last question is any of this making a difference? And really, that's the hardest one to answer. If those of you who have not seen our product Thrive, we do have a product that will let you know if people are using your reports or your content, which is really nice, because that's like the biggest thing you want to know a lot of times. Like, hey, I just spent a lot of time, did this get used, or did this just go sit out there with no one ever clicking it? So if you haven't seen Thrive, we do have a workshop on it. We also, during our Genius Bar later, have the ability for you to actually download it, set it up, and you get a trial. So by the time you leave, you have it. I don't remember how long the trial is. 2 weeks? 2 weeks. All right. So we will show that. But in addition to that, by building that tool, we realized we're collecting a lot of data that we can then deliver back to you. So one of the things that we've talked about, and I don't know if we'll do it or if someone else will do it, is being able to get this like opinions on how you feel about a report. So if anyone's been to a website where it's like, hey, do I like this? How happy am I? What's my smiley face look like? Maybe put a note about what you do or don't like. Being able to capture that, and the same kind of concept as what you saw on like a bunch of social media sites, but building that back into analytics, where now someone can say, oh, well, this report seems to be like really valuable to our organization. Maybe we enhance this, maybe we do more things with that, maybe we see if other groups need that, versus this report, maybe less valuable, but one person really needs it, so we'll keep around for that. And then being able to deliver that back to the end users in some form of feed, like, hey, this report's getting used a lot, maybe check it out, because it's very similar to this other report you use. So we've thought a lot about this, being able to like drive user activity in addition to just being able to tell you what users have done in the past. So that's our own little thoughts around moving toward augmentation within even understanding what your users are doing. So what we're working on then, this kind of leads us to our PMsquare Labs. Thrive, if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you take a look at it. Thrive takes all of your audit content, so everything from your audit database, so everything anyone does in your environment, takes your content store information, so who they are, like information tied toward their activities and what they own and things like that, and it delivers it into a really nice looking set of dashboards and reports. You can download those into Excel if you want to then do additional reporting on top of the content. So essentially trying to help you understand how users are behaving so you can drive user behavior within your environment. Again, we do have free trials for that for everyone here. If you need help setting it up, we've got our Genius Bar open later that I'll talk about. But I think that everyone would probably enjoy having that tool if you haven't seen it. We also have a in the lab session at the end of the day today, so if you want to see all these things I'm talking about in detail, there's a session at the end of the day. EMDM, which is what we're calling our Easy Metadata Modeling tool. It's got another cool secret name, which I can't remember, but Brian probably remembers. It's named after like a Viking island or something. Lennon's Barn? Okay, anyway. So EMDM is basically a way to model your data once and then use it across multiple applications. We originally designed it with, okay, maybe people want to move from Tableau to Cognos or from framework manager models to data modules, being able to actually migrate your models into other environments. That's basically the idea, is model it in one environment, build and distribute it to any environment, and that way you've got all your data in sync across any tools you're using. And then Cognos Paul's bag of tricks. Anyone who here knows who Cognos Paul is? Cognos Paul's in the back. He's the guy with the craziest looking beard you'll see here. But Cognos Paul, he built a couple of like nice reporting add-on things that we're giving away for free. Just go to our website. It literally takes maybe a minute. You put in your contact info, you hit download, it downloads the file, it has instructions on how to put it into your Cognos environment. Lets you copy content across really any part of your environment. I believe we have some type of tutorial in it as well. Yeah. Completely free. You just have to give us your information so we can bother you afterward. But other than that, it's free. All right. And then there are other things that we're talking about that I think Ryan will likely share in the labs session later, talking about like other things that we have as ideas. I know part of that lab is to get your feedback on what you'd like to see in the tools, and even if you don't go to the session, we'd love to hear from you in general about enhancements you'd like to see inside of Cognos. So coming back to the analytics and data maturity or data analytics maturity quadrant, for this conference, for the purpose of the conference, we're going to focus up here because we think this is the way things are moving. And realistically, if we came back in 2 years, maybe these things are somewhere in the middle and they're all new things to ever write. We'll continue to try to focus on what we consider the cutting edge of data and analytics. So looking at what these are, centralized analytics, that's Cognos analytics. That's reporting ad hoc, data prep and cleansing, and basically some basic level of ad hoc data usage. Narrative analytics, anyone familiar with stories? That's basically being able to tell a story with also analytics on the page. And then I'm calling it augmented analytics light because it's not quite full augmented analytics yet, but it's getting there. So sessions today that you might want to consider if you're interested in that are these. We've got migration from Tableau to Cognos. That's a success story. Cognos Analytics Data Modules Workshop 1 and 2, if you're not familiar with data modules and want to be more familiar with those. Cognos Analytics on planning analytics. We've seen a lot of our customers want to put their reporting on top of their planning analytics, and it works really well. And we've got success stories, but also lessons learned. A microservices approach with ICP for D, you're going to see in every one of these buckets because it could literally be anything. So if you're interested in any of these 4 areas, and you want to know how to deploy these applications quickly, then it's worth attending that session. How to have a successful rollout strategy, a practical approach to going mobile with Cognos Analytics dashboards, workshop 1 and 2. So the workshops, hopefully you've all done prep work for those. If you're planning to attend a workshop, you should have received an email. If not, maybe try to do the prep work before the workshop. Worst case, come and we'll help you catch up. The next area is planning analytics. That's your planning, forecasting, what if scenarios. So Cognos Analytics on planning analytics. I mentioned that microservices approach with ICP for D will be everywhere. And then planning analytics workspace. Predictive analytics is what was SPSS. So this is forward-looking analytics, predictive modeling, market-based analysis, predict future based on the past. So using time series forecasts and predict your plans. And then we got 2 workshops on predictive analytics in Watson Studio. And then also, again, microservices approach with ICP for data. And then the last one is our augmented, which is the Watson tool suite. So AI, machine learning, operization. Yeah, that word. Basically making everything automated. So what's an AI assistant? 1 and 2 are the 2 workshops. I didn't know where to put JavaScript hacks with Cognos Paul, but JavaScript hacks with Cognos Paul could probably fit best in here. Microservices approach with ICP for data, 5 U's of machine learning, and then inside the PMsquare labs, because we're starting to get more into the augmented within those as well.